Will Keenan. Welcome to the Hell Fucking Yeah podcast. The incredible Will Keenan. Welcome to the show. Happy belated birthday, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So this is a very exciting one for me. I've been a massive fan ever since Troma and Juliet, and didn't know it was possible to be an even bigger fan after Terra Firma. So Will is not only an actor, he is a man of many talents and accomplishments. Producer, director, writer, author, stuntman, president of a major digital media company, radio show host, and I probably forgot a few. You've been in theater, dancer, I mean, everything. So now you were president of Endemol for a bit. When are you going to run for actual president?
It's funny. I've been, I'm very aware of politics, especially during the political seasons. And I moved back to kind of where I grew up in South Jersey, I guess 3.5 years ago now.
Okay.
And there have been one or two opportunities to run for local office here, and I'm, I was definitely considering it. Obviously, I missed this round, but
right.
Who knows? Maybe in the future.
Listen, you can make the world a better place, so please do.
Trying our best.
And speaking of the world, how's life going for you these days?
Good.
It's crazy time.
It's crazy time, and I know, this pandemic, this virus, the economy, it's been hard on everybody. I started a nonprofit in my mother's name, who passed away in 2016, and all nonprofits, even all for-profit businesses have taken a huge hit, as we have. So it's been tough, but at the same time, so I bought this 3.5 years ago, this historic property on the South Jersey Cape, and I named it after my mother. It's an old church and cemetery.
Yep.
And, it's kind of a foundation in her name. She was a career registered nurse in Camden, New Jersey. They used to call her the Mother Teresa of nursing. So in my way, it was to keep her work going, to keep whatever, she did a lot of good for a lot of people. So
absolutely,
it was a way to keep that going. But it kind of became a scene down here. We got all these articles in the Philadelphia Inquirer and the Press of Atlantic City and local papers, and I think 400 bands have played here. And
wow.
I wish I could turn the camera around and you could see the whole joint, but it's almost like CBGBs. They all sign the wall.
That's awesome.
Thousands of people have been through the doors.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, obviously the pandemic hits, and I closed pretty early. I think it was like March 5th or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't plan on reopening these doors anytime soon until I'm kind of a data freak, until I'm, darn sure no one's going to get sick. But it has offered me the opportunity to do a little more of the administrative stuff and to get some of the renovations, restoration done. So in a weird way, the quarantine's been good for me.
Same here.
Yeah, really? Yeah.
Same here. It gave me this.
Yeah.
This was a dream.
Yeah,
this was a dream I had for a long time, and I dabbled in it a little bit here and there, but now I was really able to take it on.
Yeah. Right on. So wait, how old is and you actually pronounce the whole thing, Hell Fucking Yeah. So you can't do that on your tags or your names online, right?
Right.
So Hell Fucking Yeah podcast. So how long has it been going?
This is honestly, it's pretty new. I was on a radio show for a while with one of my friends, and creative differences, kind of things just went our separate ways, and I was more into the interviews and more into the music, film, and things like that. So I decided to start my own thing, and
right
I'm literally in my garage, and
can't tell.
Exactly. Well, that's why this is a mirage,
Yeah.
And just kind of living this really cool, surreal fantasy dream, and really thank you for being on here. This is this is huge for me.
That's
and
awesome.
I think everyone's going to really enjoy this.
I recently got into radio. I don't know if you know, I have a show on Cape May Radio. Down here it's WCFA 101.5, but it streams worldwide on capemayradio.org. And we do a show every Friday night, and it gets rebroadcast on Saturday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So, the first start of the show, I think it was like November of last year or December of last year, and it was live. you know, and that was always like a bucket item list I wanted to check. And we did like, I think 8 or 9 weeks of the live show, which was incredible. And, you know, doing even just 2 hours of live, like you're sweating, you know, and you can't have dead air. And, you know, it was kind of this old 70s soundboard system, and we would plug in our phones for the music we wanted to play. And there was a big interview, and everyone loved the interviews. They thought that was the most interesting part of it, you know, setting aside all the wacky comedy bits or whatever we were doing. And then right when the quarantine pandemic hit, they essentially had to close down the radio station. And a lot of the DJs, they have like 20 DJs, would send in a pre-recorded show. It's almost like faux live, fake live show. So we started doing that. We built a studio here at St. Babs, state-of-the-art studio, but I didn't realize how much time goes into the actual pre-recorded show, the editing and stuff. So it's taken up like almost way too much of my life. But thank God it's during the quarantine, the pandemic, while this place is closed, because I at least, you know, I think I stay up like, you know, all night, every Thursday night, just to put the show in. So I almost can't wait till it's over just for that. So, because I didn't realize how good I had it when the show was live, you know?
Absolutely. I can relate in a way, you know, I started off in live radio, which was just kind of being thrown to the wolves, you know?
Yeah.
And I was a mess, but I kind of learned to, you know, like I learned from it. It was a great learning experience. And now I like to do this. I like to record it. I like to do the editing, but it actually is a ton more work because I've been up, to be honest with you, I've been up since like last night, like putting this together, you know, because I take it seriously and I love to do it. And then obviously we do the interview. That only takes about an hour, but then there's the post-production of making everything nice and tight. But I got to say, I love every part of it, every bit of it, you know?
That means you're going to cut out all my ums and oohs and ahs and make me sound intelligent?
No. Well, you sound intelligent. You sound intelligent anyway.
Sorry, Will, there's no software for that.
I say all the time. So so we're all set.
Yeah. Well, anyway, hopefully your listeners will listen to my radio show, and my people I'm friends with online will listen to this.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you heard, like Howard Stern just a few weeks ago, I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, he played clips from my show.
Get out.
When I had one of his, I guess they called them the Whack Pack, Suzanne Muldowney underdog. And, you know, Howard Stern, who, you know, I listened to when I was a kid. And then, you know, when I went to college and stuff, I wasn't like a religious listener anymore. He was big in the Philadelphia market when I was like 13 years old. And he was a shock jock, you know, in the Whack Pack. And it was just craziness. But ever since he went to Sirius, like he's become, I think, one of the greatest interviewers in the world.
Hands down.
And he'll tell you, you know, it has a lot to do with his evolving as a person and getting into psychotherapy. But he, you know, so him saying that I was a good interviewer was just like, holy crap, you know, like, should I just quit now?
Right. Yeah, no, that's a huge compliment. And I hope to be on that level one day. I mean, he is one of the best, hands down, the best, if you ask me, as far as interviews go. And I'm really, to be honest with you, I did a lot of research on you last night. I know about the radio show. I was going to get to it at the end. But I'm really looking forward to listening to it myself. So, where can someone like me hear it? Like, I'm in Long Island. Is it just a local Jersey show?
Yeah, you just log in, and it's really easy. It's like a 2-click process. You just go to, whether it's your phone browser or I think there's an app, but or on the internet, www.capemayradio.org. And then right from there, I think it's just one other click, and you can just start listening, you know, to the essentially the live stream and the broadcast.
Sweet. Now, do you have Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, it's at 7 p.m. EST. Just you know, click through and you can listen to the wackiness. And, you know, I'm starting to create my own whack pack, as they say. But at the same time, that's why I asked, you know, when we were, you know, corresponding, I think it was via direct message. You know, if I can get the, you know, essentially the raw recording of this, then I can, you know, even for this Friday show, our show, I can, you know, put in some clips of this and promote your podcast.
Well, I would be honored to be part of that. Absolutely. And you got it. I will send it to you right after this.
Right on.
So we have a lot to get to, but no better place to start than the beginning. So Where did it all start, and was acting your first dream?
Where did it all start with it? I was told by my mother and lots of my relatives ever since I was like really, really little, like age 3, I was always performing, playing dead and doing all these kind of, dramatic things. And so, yeah, I guess I was always a performer. And by the time I got to like age 13, 14, 16, I mean, I was, straight A's, I was president of my classes, and I actually had planned to go to the Air Force Academy. And I got in there, and then it was like huge decision time. and then I went completely in the opposite direction, and I got accepted early decision to NYU Tisch School of the Arts. And I kind of did that on my own. I think my mother knew, but my father, and they were divorced at the time, and other people didn't know. And then they gave me a lot of, financial aid and accepted me early. And that was the decision. Like, do I want to go? I thought I was going to become a lawyer, an Air Force pilot. And then it was like this schmacking thing came about. And so I went, and that caused a big ruckus in my high school. They were like, "What are you doing? You're really," they thought I went to Public Six High School in Haddonfield, New Jersey. They thought I would be the first graduate to go to the Air Force Academy,
right.
Which I had been accepted to, and I didn't. So I kind of lost a lot there. But when I went there, I think I went to New York for NYU at like age 16 and a half. It was a little early. And it just, blew open a whole other thing. I fell in love with theater. I fell in love with performance art, dance theater. I was a very active, kind of guy. I've been doing stunts since I was little. And, it didn't pay at all, but we were getting good New York Times reviews. And I said to myself, if I never make money, I was totally fulfilled creatively and physically, because it was like very, very, intense physical kind of theater, dance and stunts and so forth. And I was like, that's it. But then the year I was graduating from NYU, it was, I'm aging myself, it's like 1995. Me and my friends were sitting in my apartment on St. Mark's Place in the East Village. And we're a week, before graduation, everyone was like, what are we gonna do, And someone had a backstage paper, with all the casting auditions. And then one of my friends, his name's Sun King Davis, who's like, oh my God, Troma's auditioning for Romeo and Juliet. And I'm like, what's Troma? I mean, I was climbing trees rather than watching cult movies when I was a kid. And they're like, oh, you gotta do it. So I auditioned, and according to Lloyd, it was his wife, Patty Pie Kaufman, who, when she saw the tape, was like, this is the guy. And for me, who had just graduated from NYU, and I had done a bunch of Shakespeare classes, and I had been in Shakespeare plays, and I really loved, that kind of performance, kind of like a full body, like each word had to, come out of your body, especially it was in theater, and like there's people all the way in the back rows. And even though it was this crazy cult movie, I had no idea even about the company. Like I had even never heard of the Toxic Avenger and all their other classics. But the fact that it had actual Shakespeare in it, actual Shakespeare lines,
right,
and then the rest of the lines written by James Gunn were in iambic pentameter, I was like, all right, this is a great first movie. And I thought to myself, I may never get the chance to do Shakespeare on film again. And so far I've been right. So it was, so that was my foray into film. And, I think I did one other theater project after that, but right when I got into that and like, starting out at Troma, and that immediately put me on, on the scene, the cult scene, right? I became a cult, star with just that one movie. And I remember seeing it at Cannes. They brought us all to Cannes for the Cannes film market, and seeing myself on screen for the first time. And I was like, oh man, I got a lot to learn about film acting. Because to me, like, theater acting is different from TV acting, is different from film acting. And then what I learned as an executive in the digital world, YouTube acting or digital video acting is almost like, Troma acting or theater, where everything's like much broader. So when I saw myself on screen for the first time, I was so like, oh my God, because I was, the camera sees everything, So I didn't know. I was 20 at the time or something, 21 years old at the time. I didn't know that the camera saw everything and that I should be more subtle. I mean, I guess it worked for a Troma movie where everything, but one of Lloyd Kaufman's greatest directives when he's directing is like, oh, he's just freak out. And he'd be like, have you ever seen cartoons? And we'd be like, yeah. He's like, do that. Just act like a cartoon, you know? So I guess it worked, but I was totally mortified that like my face was going like, you know, that I was, my first film, I was acting for the people in the 100th row, you know? So then essentially that's, you know, and starting out at Troma as Tromeo, because there's lots of Troma movies, right? There's ones Lloyd makes, and there's ones he picks up. A Troma movie is a Troma movie.
Yep.
A lot of people came out of that school, and to me, Troma was my film school. But it was almost like having a porn career, where that, you know, some doors were open, but other ones were slammed shut.
Right.
But this was the point where, you know, there was a resurgence, especially of independent film in New York City at the time. So I really had to work my butt off to be considered a legitimate independent film person because of Troma. So I racked up like 25, 35 or more independent films in like a 5-year period in the late 90s. And I really started to, you know, I guess I got a little better at film acting, but immediately, and I don't know if it's because I'm a Virgo and I'm a control freak and I'm also a creative, but I think it was right after Tromeo, I made a short, no, it's right after Tromeo, I got cast in a movie called Love God, which was produced by a very reputable independent film company at the time called Good Machine. And it was Anthony Bregman's first producing gig. And he was Ted Hope's assistant, Ted who ran Amazon and Good Machine for a while. And it was another crazy cult movie. There was over like 3,000 edits in the movie. Lots of really loud punk rock music, and it was considered the very first fully digital feature film of its time.
Yeah.
And it was after that, I was like, all right, I want to make my own film. I started making my own films. I made a short called Hoof Boy. And then from that point on, for the next number of years, people were asking me to act a lot, but I would kind of insert myself in other areas. Like I became known as the actor who rewrote all his lines, which there's a number of directors. I think Trent Haaga is one of them from Chop, who I would come on the set every day with my, like in a yellow legal pad, like having written all my own lines. And he'd be like, oh, geez, here we go. and then eventually, you know, I started producing and I directed a little bit features. I think the first feature, it was a co-direction with Gotti Harrell, who was my collaborator. He worked on Terror Firmware. It was called Operation Midnight Climax. And that was like my big stunt movie. That's where, you know, a bunch of papers and magazines and film festival programmers said I was like the Buster Keaton of the 21st century or something. And I didn't get hurt, but I used to get hit by cars and jump off buildings. And I tried to put a stunt in every scene of that movie.
Right.
And in every scene we were kind of, you know, illuminating some conspiracy theory, you know, which is going on a lot now. I know a lot about that stuff.
Oh yeah.
And then a few years after that, you know, 9/11 happened in New York, and I'd been living there, you know, for about 12 years by then. And it really, really affected me. 9/11, I watched it from my roof, and
wow.
I'm also kind of a spiritual guy, and I was like, all right, F this, I'm out. I want to go to the Himalayas and stand on my head and become a monk. I'm out. But I fell in love. You know, it was kind of like a 9/11 relationship that brought us together. And instead we moved to Los Angeles. And this was my, you know, when we went to Los Angeles, that's when I did I played the fake Michael Jackson on Law & Order SVU, and I did some independent films. I was producing some. And then the economy, you know, I think it was 2006, you know, it really went bad. So everyone, and I was, you know, getting money, and I was financing these, you know, I was financing movies that I could star in essentially. Right. And I was getting my money from, like, you know, Wall Street guys or guys who had some money who were not expecting their money back, because there was no, you know, there's no way to make money in independent film in those days, at least the way I was doing it. And they just wanted to meet actresses at parties. But when the economy took that downturn back then, everything just dried up. And even with, you know, lots of, you know, reputable independent film producers, you know, we used to get our money from foreign pre-sales and hedge funds. All that dried up, you know. And instead of, and this is like 2006, 2007, instead of directly transitioning to digital, which I'd been watching for a while, I'd seen these kids come up on YouTube, and I'm like, shit, man, I could have done that, you know. I instead went to Bollywood. I went to India. Yeah. You know, because they have, you know, 4 independent film industries, the biggest in the world, Bollywood and Tollywood and go. And And they were not they didn't take the kind of hit that we took as far as financing independent films. So I went there just as kind of an exploratory trip, and because I had some, at least legitimate Hollywood film credits, they kind of rolled out the red carpet for me, and I started working with some of the biggest, name talents in Bollywood. And I was there on and off for 4 years, and worked with, like I said, some of the biggest people there. And I was living large, man. I had a driver, a cook, a gardener. I was, a staff, and I was on the cover of the Bombay Times, which is like the New York Post of all of India, especially when it comes to the entertainment industry. And they're like this hot young Hollywood producer, and this was great. But I was married, and my trips just kept getting longer and longer. My last trip there was like 8 months in 2011.
Wow.
And my wife at the time said to me, "Look, I know you're doing great there, but I ain't coming there." And she has a great business. She had a great business here. So within 3 days, I was on a plane back. And then that was, so we're talking 2011, summer of 2011 and into 2012. And that's when I finally decided, okay, look, now's the time for the transition, because I saw where the industry was going. And I took 2 weeks, and I did all that. I put myself through like a digital boot camp. And I did all this research. I printed out like stacks of paper, on all these multi-channel networks like Maker Studios and Full Screen, and what was going on with YouTube. And I was all highlighted and notated. And at the end of 2 weeks, I was like, I know everything about digital now. And I didn't, but that confidence level,
right.
I believe what you bring about, that confidence level, I think, kind of sent something out into the universe. And I think it was the day after I thought I was done my own boot camp, I got a call from the head of human resources at Maker Studios, which was a really growing and famous MCN at the time. And I think they were getting like 500 million views a month across, I think a few thousand channels of YouTube stars. And she gave me a call and said, "I hear you're back in town. I just started this job. And I had a really good feeling that you would work out here. Will you come in?" And I said, "Sure." And she was the wife of, a good old friend of mine who I did a TV pilot with. He used to be the producer of True's Hollywood Story. He was nominated for Emmys, Michael Lynn. So I went in and I met the founders of Maker Studios, and we just kind of hit it off. They gave me like 3 raises in the first month. And my original kind of detail was to work with their talent, because a lot of their talents, although no one can beat them at what they do, at home alone, they're one-man or one-woman bands, they're doing everything, right? But they're not trained actors. They didn't go to NYU Tisch School of the Arts like I did. So as they were getting famous, agents are starting to circle around them, and they're getting auditions for regular TV. And so I was essentially managing a bunch of their talent. And then some of the guys who were signing channels, because while I was there, I think I joined Maker 2012, they were getting 500 million views a month across their CMS, according to ComScore, which tracks this. And they had, 1,000 or 2,000 channels. By the time I left, I think we had 150,000 channels getting a few billion views a month. So one of the guys who was signing channels, signing all these new YouTube stars, because they were being created every day in a way, and Maker Studios was, kind of the most famous at the time. And I supposedly get some credit for that, because I started Maker Studios social media, and then I was the first person in a digital MCN to kind of bridge the gap between traditional and digital. And I signed some, traditional celebrities, and I signed some really, really big, YouTube channels and YouTube stars. Yeah. And I think at one point I was responsible, or I brought in like 800 million views a month based on my channel signings. So I was dealing with talent, I was channel signing, and then I started producing and creating verticals. Like we created the Moms vertical and all these different verticals of essentially different genre categories. And it just blew up. But, I saw the writing on the wall. I was 2 years into that, and I saw the writing on the wall, because the MCN business model at the time, Disney ended up buying Maker. And when the negotiations started, that's when I kind of took off, and I was offered this amazing job at Endemol to create their first digital division in North America. And I knew the MCN model wasn't, sustainable. I knew that Disney was buying something that there was no real assets. We were signing these people for a year or two and paying them for every 1,000 views they got. But there was no real assets. Maker didn't own the IP, the content, and I don't know how they got away with it, but Disney didn't realize it until it was too late. And eventually they shut it down. But I got this amazing job at Endemol, and instead of an MCN, trying to bring it to scale, because that's what a year or two prior to that, this would be 2014. That's what it was all about. How many billions of views a month can you get? And usually at the time it was about scale, and like, you're going to need 300,000 channels to get 3 billion views. There was this kind of mathematical algorithm for it. But with Endemol, we decided to go for what we call a PCN, a premium channel network. So we concentrated on some big digital stars like Brittany Furlan and Michelle Phan, and we're doing great in digital, whether it was Vine or YouTube. And then I signed, Dragan Mateo, Emmy winner from The Sopranos, Courtney Love, from HELL. And it was this cool, kind of mix of traditional and digital stars and shows. And they were looking at, Endemol at the time was looking at us as almost like an incubator for essentially trying stuff out digitally that then Endemol, the biggest television production company in the world at the time, I think still is, could then kind of bring to TV. And some of that was really, really working out. But at the same time, and we were, I think the Streaming Awards, we were the most nominated debut channel, network, and we were the fastest growing network. So it really went well for 2 years. But then Endemol was going through a merger at the time with Shine. And I was kind of, prepared or warned by some of the people who brought me in that, okay, this is what's going to happen. And I was like, all right, I pretty much said, okay, I'm going to do my best for 2 years, but all bets are off after that. And then after I left Endemol, I really thought live streaming was going to take over, which it has, but it wasn't going to be. I was asked to join as president for, at the time, the largest live streaming company. It was called StreamUp, and they had more MAUs, monthly active users, than any live streaming platform. Facebook hadn't had theirs yet. No one was, even YouTube was just getting started out in live streaming. So I believed live streaming was the future, and that job didn't work out. Let's just put it that way. But now we see all the other platforms. It's just like, whether it's stories, but live streaming is totally taken over. So I think I was right, but it wasn't going to be that like Facebook had to buy a StreamUp. They were just going to do it themselves.
Sure.
And that's pretty much where we are today.
Yeah. Wow. So, I mean, first of all, that's all incredible. I want to rewind a little bit though. I want to go back to the Troma days, if you don't mind, and talk about some of your acting techniques in certain cult films. So, for those who don't know, Troma, if you don't know Troma, you're listening to the wrong podcast. Google it, okay, please. Some of Troma's greatest films: Romeo and Juliet, Citizen Toxie, and my personal favorite, Terra Firma. You're all part of. Now, there's a handful of horror icons out there. You got Freddy, Jason, Michael, Chucky, Jigsaw. Where's Casey? Seriously, he needs to be on that list. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, but I think looking back at it now, at the very end of Romeo and Juliet, Trey Parker and Matt Stone of South Park and many other things, they do kind of like a glorified cameo, a PSA at the end. And it's about hermaphrodites using different bathrooms and stuff, which 10, 12 years later, it's just like, or even 20 years later, it's like, oh,
yeah,
it became an issue. But that script, it was another situation where I forced these changes because when Lloyd Kaufman of Troma was making that movie and he had a script, he pretty much had a draft of the script, and he asked me to play the Jerry character, the one that Trent Haaga played.
Okay.
And I was like, no, I'd rather play the other character and change its sex to a hermaphrodite. And Lloyd was like, what? Are you crazy? and I had taken a women's studies class at NYU, and there was this whole section about hermaphrodites. And I learned all this stuff about hermaphrodites. Like, there's so many born a year, and a lot of them are corrected. Even if there's 4 different kinds. 2 lean more towards male, 2 lean more towards female. 1 on each side can actually procreate. Right. But in Western civilization, when especially in America, when a hermaphrodite is born, no matter where it leans, the parents are given a choice. You know, what do you want it to be, a boy or a girl? You have a choice, right? So I thought it'd be interesting if my character leaned more towards male, but was forced, essentially corrected to be a female. And then the storyline of its father abusing it, you know?
Yeah.
And Lloyd thought I was crazy, and then he decided to go with it, you know, and I'm glad he did, because I got to play, they say it's the cinema's first hermaphrodite serial killer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when it came time to cast the Jerry character, because I was also the casting director, and that was my thing with Terra Firma, where I was like, Lloyd, if I'm going to do this again for practically no money,
right,
almost kill myself, go through war, you know, because making a Troma movie is like going through war.
Yeah.
With Lloyd as the general, who's like, you know, straight out of Apocalypse Now. You know, I think that's why they called that documentary. What did they call it? Something about, you know, it was like a riff on Apocalypse Now.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about, but I can't think of it.
So I said, I want to learn as much on this movie as possible. Can I be the casting director? Can I be a co-producer? Can I, you know, help stage all the scenes? Like I pretty much did what James Gunn did on Romeo and Juliet for Terra Firma, just like Trent Haaga did, I think, for Citizen Toxic. Lloyd's right hand, rehearses all the actors, works with the cinematographer. Lloyd, according to James, Lloyd, you know, promises that, you know, he'll give co-director credits. So that's why we work so hard, and then we never get it.
Right.
Yeah. But I just wanted to learn as much as possible, and I was able to do that on that Troma movie. But when it came time for the casting, this young guy comes in. His name's Trent Haaga, and he, you know, he's working in you know, the online industry in some ways. You know, brilliant at that. But he was like the biggest Troma fan. And that's what that Jerry character was written as, the biggest Troma fan in the world. So this guy comes in and just blows me away. And all he wanted to do, he's like, I just want to die. I just want you guys to kill me in a Troma movie. And I just saw something in him. And I was like, no, I think you should, you know, will you please? I just gave him the sides for the lead, one of the lead characters of Jerry. And, you know, he took a few minutes outside and he came back in. And I was like, this is the guy. This is the guy.
Yeah.
He's exactly what this, you know, this role was written for. This kind of guy.
Right.
In fact, this guy. and Lloyd, and I was like, and look, he looks like Steve Buscemi. And Lloyd was like, he looks like a heroin addict. And Lloyd was actually against the casting of Trent Haaga.
Wow.
And there was 2 or 3 times, you know, where I said to Lloyd, I was like, look, if you don't do this, I quit. And casting Trent was one.
Yeah.
Changing the character my character to a hermaphrodite is another one.
Right.
And it was pay, because I cast, you know, as the casting director for Terra Firma, and I was kind of, you know, known in the downtown New York scene at the point, because I was a cult, you know, and at that point, a cult movie superstar.
Right.
And all these, you know, these kind of celebrities from the downtown cult scene, you know, Theo Kogan from the Lunatics, and G-Spot, and Mario Diaz, and, you know, world famous Bob, and the list goes on and on. And I said, I want them all in this movie, you know? And so I made it a point to do that. And the last time I kind of like, you know, and I remember it was Michael Hers, you know, because he was, you know, by this point, you know, Lloyd's partner, he was essentially kind of quiet behind the scenes guy. But when it came to money, and Lloyd too, but when it came to money. So I remember being called for the first time into, you know, Michael Hers' office, and he's like, what the hell? Because I gave him how much each one would cost. And it wasn't much. I mean, I think I got $300 to act in Tromeo.
Wow.
And I think I got $600 to act in Terra Firma. And no back end, no, I didn't get a produce, you know, I was co-producing, doing all these things, but that was it, you know? So I was paying these people, you know, even by the standards of independent film then, it was like $75 a day. But I fought for that. And I think the whole talent bill was like $1,200 or $3,000. And Michael Hers was freaking out. And I think that was the 3rd time I was like, look, if you know, these are great people. They're all like names downtown. And if you guys don't see the value in this, you know, for $1,200 or $3,000 across a cast of 30, then I'm out. And so I did. And I would, recommend that as a technique to further your career, to threaten to quit as many times. Right. And you know, definitely don't do it if you're not ready to do it. But they knew I was ready to do it. And it's not that the whole production would have fallen apart. They would have lost their lead actor. They would have lost, you know, the guy who was, you know, there were other people like Patrick Cassidy who were working their butts off. But I had my hand in so many different departments, and I, you know, I hired the production designer. So, you know, I had leverage. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Well, a few things. First of all, thank you for, you know, making the character of Casey Kaufman what it is. Second thing, thanks for keeping Trent there, because he became, I mean, he's one of my, I'm a huge fan of him too. I'm coming for him too. I'm gonna get him on here.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of his. I love Killjoy. I love Chop, which you are the star of. I actually just watched that the other day to just kind of refresh my, you know, experience. And I need to know. Go ahead.
No. I was going to say what fans I have left say that my performance in Chop, as far as like comedy horror, right?
Yeah.
Is even better than Terror Firma. So
yeah, you're great in Chop. It's that movie's hilarious. But what I really want to know is, what was your reaction, your initial reaction of finding out the ending of that movie, without spoiling it? Because if someone hasn't seen that, they have to see it.
No, I mean, I've talked about this in interviews or articles, and I think Trent has too. So, you know, I read the script, and the script is great.
Right.
And, you know, the story goes that Trent had already cast someone else, and it didn't work out. And he calls me one day, and he was supposed to start shooting in like 5 days. And he said, I lost my lead actor for this movie I'm doing. And it was the first movie Trent was directing, but it wasn't one of his scripts. And I was like, why are you not directing one of your own scripts? He's a brilliant writer. You know,
right.
He wrote an amazing script for me for our production called Poor Things, which never got made. But it was just brilliant. And Shirley MacLaine, Lindsay Lohan, Olivia Dukakis, Channing Tatum, Rosario Dawson, they all, you know, just signed up, and it became the little indie that could. It was on the cover of Variety like for 3 weeks in a row.
Yep.
But I asked him, I was like, well, Chop, why aren't you? And this was, you know, the Poor Things thing was after, but this was before. And I was like, why aren't you directing? He's like, my scripts are valuable. I want to sell them. So if I'm going to direct something, I'm not going to do something of my own that I can sell. And I was like, sure. Okay, that makes sense. So it was a great script written by Adam Minarovich, who you might know as well from that kind of world. And the very end of it was, you know, I guess the thing you're talking about. And I was against it. I was just like,
really?
nah. I was like, no, it's too lame. It's, you know, oh, it's got to be something bigger. And I was also, and this is why I think Trent hasn't worked with me since. I mean, we're still like, you know, we're buds, and we came up together and stuff. But I think Trent, especially it was his first movie, he may thank me later for putting him through so much on his first movie, because I rewrote all my lines. Not that the lines weren't great, but I felt I could bring something to the character as written. I wanted to challenge myself. Like, what could I do that, you know, that's not written, but that no one else can do in the way I would do it, right? So that you know, kind of included rewriting all my lines. But the other thing I wanted to do, because I was working in Bollywood at the time and going back and forth, and with the, you know, and Trent had raised some financing, but I wanted, you know, and he's an old friend of mine, and I'd been involved early in his career, and I wanted him to succeed, because the thing is, especially with independent film or cult film, you know, you can make a zillion of them, right? But if you lose money, you'd only make a dime back, then they almost work against your career. You know, the next time you're going out, even if it's a great script, everyone looks at what you did last. Right. You know, when I was a producer and a financier for independent films, and we were looking at directors, I would usually source a script like Poor Things that Trent wrote, and we were looking for a director, and I was pretty much saying no to every director unless their last movie could be made for $1, but if it made a dime more, and, you know, so a commercial success, quote unquote, but also a critical success that, you know, it was reviewed well and that there was fans behind it and liked it.
Right.
So with Chop, I tried to change the ending, which Trent stuck to his guns. And, you know, I read some reviews of it, and people love the ending because it's so
hilarious.
It's so good. Simple and hilarious.
Yeah.
And really, it's almost like when you see the end of a long TV show series, and they're like, "Oh, it was all in a, you know, it was all some kid's dream or something."
Right.
And then the other thing I tried to do was recast. I said, look, I'll do it. I said, but let me try to cast your whole movie with Indians, because what I knew was going on with India at the time, they would have totally bought it, and I thought he would have made lots of money if he, across the whole cast, and I was like, including myself, I was going to replace myself with Indian actors. And Trent let me kind of tread water for that a little bit, you know, and we casting, we were bringing in Indian actors who were in LA at the time. And then ultimately he said no. And then the other thing he really hated is that and look, I mean, you wrote it, other people have written it. My co-lead in the movie, Timothy Muscatel, puts in an amazing performance. Yes,
definitely.
Right?
Yep.
But before Trent told me that's who he wanted to play, as I was playing around with ideas for casting, I asked him to re-gender the role, because I thought it would be much more interesting if this girl is essentially torturing this guy,
right?
And you don't know why the whole time. It's like, what the hell did he do to her? You know, so that you're always thinking about it. And he was like, no, I want my boy Tim. And you know, it worked out the way it worked out. Working with Tim was amazing. Like he was brilliant in it, and you know, putting up with me on set is no easy feat for a director like Trent, or especially if I'm the lead, especially a co-lead actor like Tim, where we had, you know, the most on-screen time, it was together. And here I am changing all my lines and essentially not going through them with Tim beforehand. I wasn't trying to surprise him. All my lines I changed they still made the same points, but they were just delivered differently.
Right.
So Tim was a freaking superstar on that. Not only because of his own talent and performance, but he had to put up with, you know, me just kind of like really flipping the script, and you know, literally flipping the script and surprising everybody.
Right. You know? Yeah. I mean, once again, on that ending though, it almost, when you see it, it almost changes the rest of the movie. You understand what I'm saying?
What the final scene?
The final scene, you're like, oh my God, it just makes it even crazier than it already is. So that's why it's
one of the things I have with Trent about this movie, besides those, and I'm sure he hates me for them, but he admitted to me, and I hope he's listening, at one point, I think it was like towards the final edit of the movie, and we were watching some stuff, and I'm like, where's all my funny stuff? And he said to me that he left a lot of my most funny stuff on the edit room floor because he didn't want it to be just a comedy. He wanted it to have this thriller aspect. And I think my performance is okay, but I know what he's hiding. And I think like every few years, I'm like, wait, where's that footage? I want, you know, let's release it. And it wasn't on the DVD and so forth.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that as an actor who's like, man, I think I finally put in my greatest performance, you know, comedic, but some based in reality, where it could still, you know, be within a kind of a thriller structure, you know?
Right.
And I've never seen it. We used to watch dailies, you know, after we would shoot and stuff. And that shoot was like quick. It was like 11 days.
Right.
You know, I think the movie cost $50,000. He shot it in 11 days. And Trent had gone through the Troma school, so he knew, you know, what to do.
Right.
And everyone was working for free. By this point, Trent was kind of a name, especially in the cult independent film industry. And, you know, people like David Churchirillo was a PA on that set. He was like, he had to deal with me a lot. And now he's like, you know, he himself has become somewhat of a famous writer. His scripts were on the blacklist. And he had one of his movies at South by Southwest a few years ago. Another brilliant kid. So just like Troma gave its start to a bunch of people, so did Trent, especially with Chop. And I would like to believe I have done that as well through, you know, give people opportunities and chances.
Absolutely. Yeah. First of all, I know a lot was cut out, but you were still hilarious in that movie. You were very animated, almost like a cartoon.
Yeah, that's Trent. Lloyd's
yeah, it was phenomenal, really. So I know that you've had a background in theater and dance as well. You played the title role in the film The Ghastly Love of Johnny X. The film was a dash of everything: comedy, music, dance, sci-fi, horror. Would you say the film was a culmination of all your creative endeavors? And was the script written for you, or did you audition for that role?
I was approached to play, there was a script written at the time, and it changed after after I got on board. It changed, and it wasn't me this time. It was the writer-director, Paul Bonnell, had been working with a number of directors or writers, and the script kept changing. And, it took like 6 years to make that movie first.
Wow.
And when I was approached about it, it was because Paul Bonnell had heard of me. He had seen my work, but we had a mutual friend named Ramsey Abed, and he said, "You got to get Will for this. You got to get Will for this." And this is pretty much when I had quit acting. I was in LA, I was producing, I was doing some other things. I had pretty much quit acting, and he came to me and he said, "I really want you to play this role." And, I realized that it was probably going to be the very last black and white, anamorphic, widescreen feature musical ever to be shot on film.
Right.
So having starred in the very first fully digital feature film, and then starring in the last, black and white, widescreen musical feature shot on film, I thought, oh, that's a pretty good bookend to a small sliver of global cinematic history.
Sure.
But it was also an opportunity, and by the way, I hate my performance in that movie. But it was an opportunity because I'd done all these crazy, it was a weird career to play these crazy roles, but they were the leads, usually like someone like Casey and Terra Firma, or even Chop, like it's usually not the lead role who's so cartoonish,
Yeah.
or weird. So this was almost an opportunity to be subtle and cool, right? It was the first time I got to sing, in a film, which I thought was cool. And, just the nature of it, this kind of throwback to the 50s sci-fi, like, teenagers who look like they're 30 from outer space, and there was all these references. And Paul Bonnell, I will say, he, by this point I had done like 40 some odd movies. A lot of them small independent or cult movies I had started, but it was such a fun set. I don't think I've ever had more fun on a set than the Gas and Love of Johnny X.
Yeah.
But the thing was, like, he didn't kind of tell us when he cast us, and we shot for a week. All of a sudden, production ended because he ran out of money. And what he was hoping was that he would, have footage that he can show investors, and they'd be like, "Yeah, like we're going to give you another $600,000 or $6 million to make this movie." Had I known that, and I even tried to talk him out of it. I was like, "Look, you only shot 11 minutes, and you spent, you put his house up for a second mortgage."
Right.
I was like, "No one's going to fund this. Who's going to fund a black and white musical?" Like, I don't understand. I was like, and to him, like I did to Trent, I was like, "You should cast all Indians. They love musicals. They'll put up with." I really tried to do that. And then as years were going by, and every year Paul would call us, the whole cast, and be like, "We're back on. I think I got the money." And after the first year, second year, third year, fourth year, we would take the calls, and at least I was kind of like, yeah, sure, whatever. And the script would always change. He would send in his script, and he thinks he got the money. And then finally, the 6th year, 6 years after we shot, for 1 week, he gets money from Mark Willoughby, who became the executive producer, who owned like a movie memorabilia store in Los Angeles. And then he gives the call, 6 years, like, "Oh, it's on." I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." He sends the new script, and then he says that the wardrobe and costume people are coming over to my studio in LA. And I was like, "Wait a minute, could this be real?" So it just kind of like happened like that. And then we shot, I think probably for like 20 some odd days after that. And the big surprise about that, I think it's definitely made history for what it is. Like, who the hell else is going to make shoot on film, an anamorphic widescreen, musical black and white feature. I even tried to talk Paul Bonnell when he was trying to raise the money. I was like, "Look, just shoot digital, and there's filters now, software now that can make it look like." But he was like, "No." He was a kind of a traditionalist, and he had all these short ends of, I guess, the Kodak, like this whole black and white Kodak stuff. And supposedly, rumor goes that during the shooting of The Artist, that won the Oscar, which was a silent black and white movie.
Yep.
During the shooting of that, they called Paul Bonnell because he was kind of hoarded all this film stock that they wanted and needed. And Paul wouldn't give it to them, wouldn't sell it to Harvey Weinstein.
Wow.
And because he was keeping it for his own movie. And I just thought that was insane to begin with. But it just goes to show you, like, the guy, you know, really put in 6-10 years of his life. His marriage ended. He, you know, I don't know if he ended up losing his house, but, you know, and then it became the, you know, the lowest grossing film of that year. But it's you know, somewhat gained its own cult following. And I think years from now, you know, it's going to be the last of its kind in a way.
Absolutely. So speaking of last of its kind, that was the last film you starred in.
Correct.
Are you officially retired from that, or are we going to see you again? Please.
I really don't know. I love acting. I miss it, you know? And since, you know, because after all that, I finally made the transition to digital, like maker, and became an executive. And I was, you know, really into the executive lifestyle, especially the money that came along with it.
Sure.
And I felt working in that industry, I was really making an impact. Like, we were part of something that was like essentially taking over the world. Like, YouTube stars were bigger than A-list actors at the point where I was, you know, doing it. And some of my creative juices were getting out, working with these actors and stuff. And some of them, like Bart Baker, who was like, you know, to me at the time, he was the Weird Al Yankovic of YouTube. He would do all these parody videos. A lot of them knew my former career, and these huge YouTube stars would, you know, come into the office and be like, "I watched Chop the other day," or whatever it was. And will you be in my video? And you know, I appeared in a few, you know, YouTube star videos at the time. And you know, I'll be honest, like, I think because of, you know, my former career as a cult movie star, you know, I get offered, I still get offers to do stuff, right? You know, maybe once a month, you know, an offer, but I don't know what to say other than, you know, if the right role comes up and I have the time to do it and I feel like I can really bring something to it, then, you know, it's on the table. Like, someone came here and shot a short film that they wanted me to star in. It's called Podemic, and we finished that a few weeks ago. And it's just a short film, and it's shot on this property here, which has a cemetery. And the rumor is that Edgar Allan Poe's, you know, the rumor is that the subject of his second most famous poem, Annabelle Lee, her parents are buried here, and she's from this area, Annabelle Lee Johnson. Wow. So a guy who runs Cape May Technical Institute, and teaches filmmaking and media production to, you know, high schoolers in Cape May County, where I now live and have this historic property. He came and pitched me this, and I was like, all right, fine, I'll do it. You know, but it was working with, you know, younger people, and it was kind of on brand for what I'm doing now. And I feel like there's one or two roles I have left in me. Not left in me. I mean, I could, if I chose to go back into acting, I don't know if I'd be, you know, received, if I would book roles. I was never good at auditioning. I don't think I ever won, except for Law & Order SVU. I don't think I ever won a role by auditioning, because I would choke, and I would choke, and I didn't have auditioning class at NYU. They now have them, you know. It was mainly because of the stuff I had done, and then directors or writers meeting me at indie film parties or whatever. And then, some roles were kind of written for me, or had me in mind, or the directors were warned enough that if they cast me, I was going to, quote unquote, make it my own. But there's probably one or two roles where, if it were brought to me today, I would say yes in a second.
Awesome.
One is to be the lead in a movie, but the lead character is a zombie with personality.
Okay.
I feel like I could do something with that.
Love that.
Yeah, and then there's one other one, what I'm not going to say. So I don't know, but, you know, I just turned a certain age, and supposedly people tell me I still look good, but I'm, you know, keeping the door open. If the thing comes, you know, what I'm doing right now has been for the past 3.5 years. I got this old historic property. I named it after, you know, my dead mother. Yep. And, you know, we get grants from New Jersey State Council on the Arts, National Endowment for the Arts, Cape May County, the Wawa Foundation, to do these family arts programs. So this is the first time in years and years that I've actually felt creative. So I'm getting I'm getting that out. You know, when I was an executive, I got to work with really creative people and be a creative producer or a creative kind of organizer. But, you know, working with young people, you know, we've had like 400 bands play here. I've gotten into music for the first time. I always loved music, and I always wanted to sing in a movie. Johnny X provided that. But when I got here, we opened up this venue for young people to play live original music. So I got into that. We have a state-of-the-art music studio upstairs. So I've been, you know, kind of dabbling in that a little more, and we'll see. Like, you know, if any director is willing to work with me, I suppose if it's the right role, I would consider it. And, you know,
Absolutely.
These days it's just like, I'll almost do anything if you make a donation to St. Babs, the nonprofit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah, so let's talk about St. Babs a little bit, actually. In 2017, you acquired, it's a historic church, right? Mm-hmm. In Cape May, New Jersey, Cape May County.
Yes.
And it's basically a spiritual arts recovery refuge.
Yeah.
So what, I mean, we know what brought you to this new venture, but what would you say is the ultimate mission?
Well, you know, when I started out as an actor, I wanted to be, you know, at NYU, I wanted to become the next James Dean, you know, and it was all about just kind of getting famous. And you know, even then I thought if I get famous, then I can do good in the world, you know, and my career went the way it did. But I've always wanted to do something like this, you know, just gain enough, you know, name recognition or power, influence, or money. And I finally made money at the end of my career as an executive. I never made money as a producer of independent films, as financier. You know, I would make $75,000 or $150,000 on a movie I was producing, but we had gone wildly over budget and we didn't get the money till the end, so it was already spent. You know, as an actor, I never really made any money except for like the TV stuff and one or two movies I still get residuals from. But I had always, you know, and then as I got older, I thought, I still want to do this. I want to make movies that matter. I want, you know, I'd be a liar if I said I didn't want the work I was involved with to reach the largest, you know, amount of people. I didn't want to just do sick and twisted cult movies, you know, anymore. And in fact, I went through a really rough period where I almost regretted my cult career because, you know, people would come up to me who were all strung out on heroin, tattoos and piercings all over. Not that there's anything wrong with that. And, you know, track marks in their arms, be like, Julia changed my life, man. And I'd be like, oh,
yeah.
You know what? You know, images have power, and, you know, have my movies actually, you know, kind of hurt young people. That, you know, so I was really I was living in an ashram in LA at the time. And I remember I was really upset about it, and I kind of swore it all off. And this is before Chop and Johnny X and stuff. I was talking to one of the monks there, and I was like, I feel really bad about, you know, my acting career. I feel like I may have, you know, hurt young minds in a way by being so good at the characters I played. And he said, look, at least it was someone like you with a good heart who was playing those characters. And that, you know, in a spiritual, energetic kind of way, they're going to happen anyway. But like, you know, so that kind of like gave me the, I guess the at least got the guilt off a little bit. And then as I, you know, kept going and grew older and started producing more, and then became an executive with digital, I knew I wanted to create a foundation or something like this, right? Mm-hmm. Where, I mean, you know, in 3.5 years we've been here, we've provided emergency shelter to like over 100 people. Wow. You know, that we have these code blues here and homeless people living in tents in the woods and stuff. You know, we helped a lot of people with recovery. We put a lot of money into the economy, giving people jobs, source jobs for people. Obviously the spirituality and the services and the meditation things, the ministry, as you would say, are a big part of it. And then providing in my mind, a safe space for young people to do what they want to do. They want to play music. They want to be creative. They want to play video games. Like we actually, you know, projected, you know, video games onto, you know, the sanctuary ceiling. So kids can play, but it's a safe space where they know they're not supposed to be drinking or doing drugs, and they're all really respectful. You know, whereas if they're going to do those same things at their friends' basements where the parents aren't paying attention, usually something's being passed around, or, you know, and the, you know, kind of epidemic of you know, the opioid epidemic, and even, you know, there's so many issues I've been learning about with young people, gender fluidity, and all these kinds of different things that I've been learning about, and, you know, just providing a safe space for them to do it. And then they all walk in and they see this historic, you know, it's a church, but it's a historic building, and the history of the whole property. It's a 2-acre property, and all the, I call them the famous founding families of Cape May County, the Townsends, the Tomlins, the Ludlums, the Hands, the Course. They all built this place, and they're all buried here, like right around, you know. But these kids walk in, and they're gonna play, like in my day, it was called punk rock, you know. Now it's like, you know, that was hardcore, now it's screamo. So it's not like I have to wear earbud, you know, or ear things now. But to me, and my mother had always said this, that if I didn't have like schmacting when I was younger or sports, I'd be dead or in jail, because I was like that angst full of, you know, my father wasn't around, like I was just, you know. Yeah. So I see these kids playing this music, and it may not be my kind of music anymore, right, but I see what happens to them, especially if there's no drinking and drugs around. And they're so respectful of the place. They clean up after themselves. So it kind of became a thing. We became known, St. Babs became known as the premier, pretty much the only venue for original music. Wow. There's a lot of places down here, especially during the summer season, short points like Wildwood, Atlantic City, Cape May, Sonar, you know, Avalon. They have these little clubs and stuff, but it's just cover bands, you know. Right. And it's all the greatest hits for, you know, everyone from college to get, you know, drunk on. So we became known as that, and we became, you know, known as the Arts Church, which is really cool. We got this grant because there needs to be some renovation and restoration. We got this grant from a very reputable Philadelphia architectural company, agency. So things are going really well. But like I said, once the pandemic hit, it was like I had to cancel all the events. We had 4 weddings planned. And wow, the thing was, like, I had made some money. I had made really good money my last 5-6 years in Hollywood, especially as an executive. I gave a lot away. I've always been very giving. I give hundreds of thousands of dollars away to charities and friends and people who needed it and family. And it's not that I wish I didn't, but I wish I had saved more. Let's just put it that way. Because acquiring a property like this, there's no such thing as a mortgage. It's an all-cash deal. Right. Now that it's all paid for, the utilities, everything's not that expensive, but all the events we've been having, the grants we get, we have regular, or we used to before the economy took another downturn, regular kind of donors, you know, and the wedding business was really starting to take off. You know, people wanted to get married here, and, you know, all that, you know, we canceled all of that. So it became tough for that. And the part I miss the most is providing a safe space for all these young people around here. Sure. You know, and people have traveled from, you know, Canada, wow, New York State, and California just to come here and check it out. Yeah. So it's going really well. And now we're kind of, I guess, in pause or pivot position. But hopefully, once this is all over, we'll come out stronger. Yeah, well, that's a really inspirational thing too. That's incredible. So thank you for doing that. Yeah. It just happened a little earlier than I thought. With a little less money I had saved than I thought. Yeah. So, well, listen, when it happens, I guess, right? Mm-hmm. So we spoke about the radio show a little bit before, but before I do a little picture segment. So basically, I share my screen. You see, I take some pictures off your Instagram, okay, and we discuss what's going on in them. But before we do that, it's fun. It's fun. Before we do that, where I'm sweating already. Nah, they're good pictures. Good. Everything's good. Now, before we get into that, the radio show, it's family fun, right? Everyone can listen to it. Yeah, lately everyone can listen to it. It started out as that, as like a family variety show. There was like, you know, comedic gags. We would play music. We would support local businesses and, you know, global businesses. Right. And then there was the big interview. You know, I'd have like 2 interview guests, usually one live, when we were doing the show live, one live musician. Either they were local or they were traveling, you know, and kind of made a stop off to our radio show. And then one big interview with all sorts of people, local, you know, local business owners, local celebrities and artists and musicians, but also like some of my, you know, celebrity network, I would bring them on. And then after the pandemic, and when I started editing the show myself up in our studio, I think it took on a little different turn. Like there's been a few times where I missed an F-bomb, you know, because I'll steal clips from the internet and so on. And I will admit that the show has become a little political even. Okay, nothing wrong with that. So yeah. But kids can still listen to it.
Okay, so let's remind everyone too where we can hear it again, because
yeah, worldwide at www.capemayradio.org, and that's CAPEMAYRADIO.org.
Very cool, very cool. So let's get into the picture segment here. I'm going to share my screen.
They can't be too embarrassing because I'm so vain.
No.
I put up embarrassing pictures of myself
No.
on my own Instagram.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. All right. You see everything good?
I see it says recording. Hell Fucking Yeah started screen sharing.
Yep. All right. So here we go.
Okay.
Hold on. It keeps doing that. All right. First picture here. Lloyd Kaufman and obviously Will. I described the picture a little bit because some people just listen to this. They don't watch the YouTube video.
So I have no idea. I'm going to guess it's like during terra firma years, like 99 or 2000. I have no idea where it is.
Okay.
But I think it's at probably some kind of festival or film market or something.
Yep. All right.
And
so
he's doing the famous Lloyd, like, oh.
Yep. I've actually had the pleasure of meeting him once in person, and he's great, man.
He's a blast.
Really,
I learned a lot from Lloyd Kaufman. I'm hard on him on certain things, like how he runs a set.
Right.
One of his top things is he said this. The first thing he tries to do when he gets on set that day, and look, Troma shoots are long and laborious. It's hard. It's war. No one's being paid. We're all eating cheese sandwiches, and you're working. It's non-union, so you're working like 18 hours a day. But he said the first thing he does when he goes on set is try to make someone cry, like a PA. Just destroy them. He gets out of the car and he just starts yelling at someone and makes them cry. And this is usually a huge fan of his who paid their own way to come and work for him for free and sleep on a fucking basement floor.
Right.
And he said he does that because he wants to immediately, when he shows up on set, like send it out that everyone's got to be on their toes.
Sure.
I kind of disagree with that as a vibe technique. But
it works for him, but yeah.
I've learned so much from him as far as the art of, not that I'm great at it, soundbite, grassroots publicity, how to shoot on the fly, how to shoot guerrilla, how to do it without permits, how to not pay people. So he's been a mentor,
Absolutely.
This next one is from Terra Firma, where I played the cinema's first hermaphrodite serial killer. This is when I'm in my, because they burned me alive essentially, and I'm in my burn up makeup. Funny story about that makeup thing was that our makeup artist, whose name I'll leave out for now, she had a great design, but when I remember the first time when she put it on me, I had to lie on my back, and she put it on me. It took like an hour or two, like a full body burn makeup. And then when she said she was done, and I was like kind of meditating the whole time and going through the lines in my head, when she told me to get up, I couldn't move an inch without my skin being like ripped.
Wow.
Because she had forgot to put the lubricant. No, I swear to God.
Oh man.
And it was like it was so painful, and I couldn't, like, that might be why, especially in that last scene when he's dying, that it seemed so real that I was in pain.
It's really funny because I was going to ask you about the makeup, how it looks uncomfortable. Like it looks in the movie like you are, like you said, really in pain. So yeah, there we go.
That's why. That's why.
Wow, that's unreal.
Oh, and for that movie, there was the second time I had to get a full body wax.
Wow.
Yeah. The other one was Law and Order SVU, the fake Michael Jackson role, and that's not pleasant either. You go in with these Russian women who are just like, it was painful.
That sounds horrible.
I would never do it again unless they paid me a lot of money.
Yeah. What we do for art,
Yeah.
So you sent me this one actually as, when I was going through the promos, and then as I was looking through your Instagram, I saw a few of them with different variations of drawings on your face and, and things like that. So obviously this is your headshot, maybe like convention type of thing.
No. That is, I was a child model in like,
okay.
7th, 8th grade,
Right.
And I used to, I lived in South Jersey at the time, and my mother and I would travel to New York. I had this agent. I would do all these modeling gigs. With did this thing for Apple computers with the Muppets, Jim Henson Jr.
Wow.
And it was going really, really well, but I was taking too much time out of school. But that was kind of like, I guess, my headshot from when I was a child model.
Sure.
And when the pandemic hit and we weren't taking in as many donations for the foundation, St. Babs, some people were asking me for autographs and stuff. And I was running out of the Troma Yeah stuff and the Terror, and I found a stack of these old things. So when I would sign them, I just started getting creative and making a fool of myself. And that's what that is.
Well, I got to be honest with you. I'm going to need one of these if you still have one.
I think I have one or two left, yeah.
I want to put up my wall here, and I would love to see your variation of what you do to your head or your face. And
yeah, I try to make it a little different every time.
And I'm going to harass you every day until I get one. So
okay.
I'm just kidding. All right. So obviously this is part of your time with Endemol. Will's standing here with Courtney Love on his left side. So what's going on here? Where's this at? And
yeah, when I got to Endemol, the guy who brought me in, an old friend of mine, Charlie Corwin, he knew Courtney. I think I'd met her previous to signing her. I signed her to Endemol. She, like Jay Mateo, was one of the only traditional celebrities, non-digital. She really hadn't done anything digital. I think even then she wasn't big on Twitter and everything. So we signed her, and that is from, in Miami, they have this big kind of TV convention. I forget the name of it. Mm-hmm. And she performed there. We had just signed her. I think it was like Good News and Variety or whatever. And we did this kind of, I think it was called On Courtney. And it was like, almost like a mini reality show. And she said she never wanted to do a reality show, but she did it with us, but we were incubating it. And then we did. Endemol got offers for her to take what we had incubated with the digital show we did to, do it for TV, but she really wasn't interested. But if you look at those episodes, I think, it really shows the side of Courtney that a lot of people didn't know. And one of the things I didn't know is that, because once I started working with her, not only is she amazingly, hilariously funny, she was one of the funniest people in person I've ever hung out with, but she's wicked, wicked, wicked smart. Smart. I mean, brilliant. But tough as hell as far as like challenging, to work with that kind of talent.
Sure.
And people say that because I had been talents, I guess I had a kind of a vocab with them or a way to work with talent. So I was like the only one who could get Shirley MacLaine out of her trailer when I worked with her. And working with Courtney was, truly a highlight of my career. But also, when we signed, especially traditional talent like that, we would work with them across all digital platforms. So at the time, our chief social officer, Jacob Schwartz, whether it was Courtney's Facebook or Courtney's Twitter, and there was a few other things, obviously her YouTube channel, I think, and Dre DiMatteo, I think would say the same thing, because they're both really big on social now. And both of them have said in the past that it was in part because of the work, especially Jacob and our team had done with them while we signed them at Endemol. Because to launch a digital show, it's like you have to have the kind of the amplifiers, which was their social media. So they all had social media, but it wasn't optimized. It wasn't, there wasn't regular content. It wasn't like a real, I guess, social media strategy of being regular and, essentially repeat certain things. So we did that, and I'm proud of that. And working with her was, I got stories, just let me tell you.
That's awesome. All right. So, now we have Will, and he's got a cat on his shoulders, and the tail of the cat is, right through, he's wearing sunglasses. Right behind the sunglasses is the tail. So where is this? Is this St. Babs?
Yeah, this is we call it Grace Hall, the back hall in St. Babs. Okay. And this is, I think, the beginning of quarantine, maybe. Okay. So I'm a cat guy. We have six now. And ever since quarantine, ever since we closed the doors, we've actually been fostering cats too. So this cat lady comes over with 3 new kittens every few weeks, and we try to socialize them with with humans and my fiance Mara and I, and our other cats. And then the cat lady comes back and takes them and gets them fixed, and then she brings them back for the recovery and the socialization, and then she goes and gets them adopted. But The only problem with that is that, you know, every once in a while you end up keeping one. So now we have 6. That one's name is that one's name is Karma. She is a what do they call it? A tortoiseshell calico cat.
Okay.
She's very, very special, and she I heard this about calicos, that they just like to be on the shoulders. I'm actually surprised she's not here right now. And then they wrap their, you know, their tail around. It's either it becomes a mustache or it goes through my glasses.
Right. Well, she's very beautiful, and you see, you're still helping even with the doors closed. So there you go.
Right.
This one, I'm a huge David Lynch fan, and obviously a very big fan of you. And I thought this was incredible. So
yeah, he's one of the people I thought I should probably, you know, I thought it would be a natural for me to work with him. And years ago, I got close. I worked with his daughter, Jennifer Lynch. I was a producer on a movie called Hiss, Hiss, and it was based on the myth of the snake woman goddess in India. So it was essentially an Indian finance, Indian production. The star of the movie was a big Bollywood celebrity, but we hired Jennifer Lynch to direct it. So I finally got to meet him, you know, during that, and had I really liked that movie, Hiss, and Jennifer Lynch did an amazing job. And she's an amazing person, like super cool chick. Yeah. And, you know, I think it was Paul Bennell, who, the director and producer of Johnny X, who made that photo happen. I had nothing to do with it. I was actually surprised too. I was like, what?
Yeah. Well, that's what I was wondering, like your reaction of seeing this. So I forgot to describe it. David Lynch is holding a copy of the DVD of Ghastly Love of Johnny X. So yeah, your first reaction was, I was
like, holy crap! Who got that done? It wasn't me.
Right. That's awesome. All right, so here we have Will. I believe you're in India or something. Okay, yeah. And you have, you know, I don't know what it's called exactly, but like some paints on your forehead. Yeah. Just
like the sadhus do over in India. So like I was saying before, from the years, I think 2006 to 2011, I was going to India a lot. And although I had lived in an ashram in Hollywood beforehand that had, you know, that was started by a yogi from India, everyone was thinking that all my trips to India during that time were for like spiritual walkabouts and to go meditate and stuff. And it wasn't true. I was just in Bollywood, you know, getting certain movies made with big stars there. So this was the first time, this was last year, that I got to go back to India for spiritual reasons. And every 12 years, they have something called the Kumbh Mela, which means the Great Gathering. And it's the largest human gathering on the planet. You know, while I was there for just 6 days, 30 million people within probably a 5 square mile radius.
Wow.
But the festival lasts for like 2 or 3 months. And over that period, 150 million pilgrims come. So it's incredible. And you see all these, you know, yogis and sadhus and all these, you know, saints come down from the mountains every 12 years or every 6 years to take part in this. And it's something I've always wanted to do. And it only happens, you know, every number of years. So it was finally the opportunity to do that. And it was the experience of a lifetime.
That's amazing.
No.
All right, so here I believe we have the outside of St. Babs.
Yep.
And some kind of roadster or something here, right?
Yeah, that was right. That was right before. I think that was my first year here after acquiring the property, and because there's this historic cemetery there, I thought, like all over America, even all over the world, during Halloween, we could have this cool, you know, thing going on. Because you know, right down the block, like 2 miles down the block, there's this. It's called Historic Cold Spring Village, and every season, whether it's Halloween or other events, they hire these actors to play. You know, it's a Victorian era kind of deal down here in Kitchener County to play these actors. It's like environmental acting. So I wanted to do the same thing and take people on tour of this historic cemetery with hiring actors of people. You know, there's a lot of famous personages in the cemetery from around here, and they would take you on tour. And it wasn't going to be too spooky. I mean, it was during Halloween, and it's an old cemetery. It was going to be spooky. It was going to be like informative and entertaining.
Sure.
So that's what that Roadster is out there for. Because we had one of those fake skeleton horses, that was on the front, and you see the tower at the top. We had aliens hanging out of the tower playing musical instruments. There was a downed UFO ship like down the parking lot, and it was all decorated, and it was amazing. And it got really popular. Too fast, too soon. NBC did a big story on it. Affiliate in New York, New Jersey's biggest radio station, 101.5, NJ.com, New Jersey's biggest website. And it made it all the way to the British tabloids, the UK Daily Mail, because the Halloween event I was trying to do here my first year was not liked by the locals. The locals were pissed because they had heard about there had been all these like kind of really positive articles about me taking over or acquiring this property in the Philadelphia Inquirer. And so, but with the Halloween thing, they really thought it was going to be like, young people kind of desecrating graves and pissing on graves and drinking and drugging and stuff.
Sure.
So even though I took heat, man, I mean, people are still talking about it, but for 6 months, I was so depressed that everyone was mad at me around here because I just kind of moved in, I was curled up in a ball, all depressed. I'm like, I'm sorry, God. I'm sorry, Mom. I made I was really upset. But in a way, things happen for a reason. It made us go famous. And then most of the people who were really concerned about that Halloween event, I'm now totally tight friends with.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'd love to, one day when it's back on, love to come down.
Yeah, man.
So maybe this is a coincidence, but is this?
Yeah, that's leftover from the Halloween thing.
Okay, all right.
Oh, geez, yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got Will sitting here with a skeleton with an alien head on.
What's in his lap?
I don't know. What is it in his lap?
Some
kind of business card or something?
I think it's someone's business card. Yeah.
Yeah. Some subliminal promotion there.
Yeah.
All right. So this one.
What is that?
What's that?
I said, yeah, what is that? I pass this sign pretty much every day. Because
yes.
We're in a very rural part. Although 15, 20 minutes in any direction, it gets to the crazy Jersey Cape beaches and boardwalks, But where we are, if you look at it on the map, we're right smack dab in the middle, in between the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean and the Delaware River, in the bay. But it's surrounded by natural wildlife preserves, all these beautiful Garden State farms. So even just to go to a convenience store is like 3.5 miles away.
Right.
So this is the road I take. It's Route 47, otherwise known as Delsey Drive. And I kept seeing this sign over and over again. Mm-hmm. And both Mara, my fiance, and I were like, does that say huge tarp sale?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? And it's supposed to be tarp sale.
Yes.
Right? Because there's lots of little kind of independent businesses that sell tarps or RVs or fences and lots of, nurseries, gardening and fruit stands and vegetable stands. Right. But that was one I finally, I think it was after like the 50th time I passed, I was like, I gotta pull over, take a picture and see what people think of this. And
right. So, well, what's funny about it is that I've read the caption that you have on the photo, and you're probably wondering why I even picked this one. It's because it has the same effect on Instagram. It sometimes shows up in my feed. Really? And I do the same thing. I'm like, does that say huge tard sale? And it does it to me every time. So obviously looking at it now, you can see it. Yeah. But that P is just not enough of a P,
Exactly. I wonder if anyone's ever actually mentioned it to them.
Right. I wonder.
And if they have, if the person was like, we're leaving it,
Yeah. So I figured I'd end with this one. This is you kind of started off with this message, and now we're going to end with it. Vote. Yeah. Vote.
Yeah. I mean, I'm wearing it now, right? I think I haven't taken the shirt off since then. And this was a friend of mine. I mentioned him previously, Jacob Schwartz. He was the chief social officer I hired for Endemol. And then I think he was like chief social officer for WeWork, which obviously I guess kind of closed its doors down because of the pandemic and the quarantine. And now he's consulting with Global Citizen, an amazing nonprofit group that does these huge shows every year with all these top artists. And they tied up with headcount.org and American Eagle apparel to just try to get people to vote, and that's to me what it really is. I almost don't care, what people's political leanings are, but the lack of participation, because we're a country of hundreds of millions of people, and then I think last election was 110 only million voted. So kind of my thing is that when people either think that their vote doesn't count, it's like you got to test that theory, and has America ever truly tested that theory, and to make it easier to vote. Like there's so many things that can be done to make it easier to vote. And we can see certain things going on about, disinformation, whether it's from foreign actors or Facebook or, just bad actors and trolls, or even voter suppression techniques that some, even politicians kind of promote in America. But I think this, I know they say every election is the most important in a lifetime. This one I think is...
Yeah, this one takes the cake.
Yeah, because democracy as we know it could be totally gone after this one.
Sure.
Is this the true globalization where, what used to be the premier superpower in the world and, the kind of the beacon of light of democracy around the world? Is this the true globalization where we don't even own our own country anymore? Like, we're influenced by outside sources. But the only way to truly, I think, tell or to test that would be if, we had the largest kind of, voting electorate in history. And otherwise, I think a lot of things have changed just in the past 4 years. But, and I don't plan on living that long. But, it's about securing this, and it's a republic if we can keep it. We're right now there where it's like hanging on by a thread. And I know a lot of people don't understand that or they think it's fake news, but I don't know. So anything I can do, Jacob asked me if I can, get some people on board. I'm actually working with Innovators for Biden, and I'm an ambassador to the Biden campaign, mainly just for get out the vote efforts. Some of we got, 35, 6 days away. And over 800,000 people have already started voting. And this whole slowdown of the mail and Trump saying that there's going to be rigged in ballots, like it's going to go to the Supreme Court, like this, we're living history right now. But I think it's only going to get worse before it gets better. And unfortunately, I believe there's going to be a lot more kind of violence in the streets as this thing goes down.
Yeah.
And I'm just praying for everyone. And the only thing I think that could quell what certain nefarious forces are trying to start, almost like a civil war here, is voter participation. And so that it's the people speaking and it's way too much. I mean, you see what's going on in Belarus right now. Millions of people are out the streets every day. Are Americans too apathetic to even do that? Will they even know when their country's been taken from them?
Right.
The answer may be no, because we're, escaping, on too many other devices or other things, or not paying attention. We believe these lies that our vote doesn't count. So it's really sad, and to me, it's about the future, and that's why, the more we can get across that, hey guys, this is like 1776 again. Like, true patriots are going to make a sacrifice, and the sacrifice in this case might be just going to the polling place itself.
Yeah.
And exposing yourself to a virus that's taken over the world.
Right.
It's a rough one.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I agree. This is a big one, guys. Get out there and vote, and let your voice be heard. Absolutely.
Right.
So
vote or die.
Vote or die. So now I'm going to come back to our regular screen here. Everything look normal again?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to, we're going to wrap it up soon. I'm going to do my little outro, and then don't go anywhere though, like right away. Some people just hang up and I'm like, what? Wait, no, hold on. All right. So
getting my mouse ready.
I ask everybody, now I don't think you've cursed once this entire time. And you don't need to. If you want to just say effing, that's fine.
Yeah.
But
you want a bumper.
What's that?
you want a bumper or what do they call it? The teaser, not the teaser. You want me to say your brand name?
Yeah, but if you don't feel comfortable doing it, that's cool.
I'll do it in my own way. How's that?
Perfect. Sounds good to me.
All right, what do you want me to say?
So this is what it is. I ask you a question. On a scale from 1 to hell fucking yeah, how excited were you to be here today?
I'd say 10. I was excited. I was excited you got in touch with me. And then when I looked you up, I was like, all right, this seems cool. I looked you up, and I started following you, and I'm like, all right, this guy's the real deal. He's cool.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right. You've been listening to Hell Fucking Yeah, a Mike Gruttola podcast.
All right. That's awesome. Oh my God. Thank you so much.